maybe I should play this short video clip that Rosemary sent to me earlier this week. I think it was Rosemary, which is a TikTok that had a couple of interesting things in it. Let me share this. Is everyone seeing that on the screen? Now the trick will be if the audio works.
When I was getting ready to share Sleep Trailer with the world and show the world my idea of how I think we could help many people have a safe place to sleep at night, I knew that there would be a lot of blowback from some people that would say it's not enough. And for them, I agree. Affordable housing is the answer and the solution for how we truly end homelessness and help more people back on their feet. What I wasn't expecting, however, was how many people and comments I would get from people saying that it's too much, that we're enabling them somehow. That by this, giving them 32, 36 square feet of space to have their own space, a place where they can sleep and be safe, that we're enabling them, that we're making the problem worse. Look, I don't care what choices people made. I don't care what got them in that situation. Every single person deserves to have a safe place to sleep at night. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to take it or they have to use it, but we should at least have something available for them to use. For those of you that say, don't do it, build affordable housing. Look, I don't know who you are or who you think I am, but I'm not Bill Gates. I'm just some random dude trying to help. So I'm gonna keep doing what I can to give more people a safe place to sleep at night. You keep complaining from your toilet while you're scrolling on TikTok.
Really,
I thought that might be entertaining for folks to get us started this morning. So welcome again, everyone, to this morning's meeting of the Tacoma Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness. Rosemary, would you like to get us started?
Well, in the spirit of random dudes and, I don't know, random gals, I guess, I would go a little more on the serious side to start, but we gathered today in the full awareness of multiple crises in our globe and in our neighborhoods. They all demand our attention, and whatever little bit we do is absolutely important. And as I thought about meeting you all here in this Zoom space, I remembered two dates that may help us center on our common work. Before we meet again next week, we'll celebrate the spring equinox. That's that official beginning of a new season that has equal parts of light and dark. And we'll also mark the date 2 years ago, March 23rd, when Washington Governor Inslee issued the first COVID stay-at-home order, disrupting all our lives in an effort to contain a deadly pandemic. We're here in this space in part due to that order, as we've become Zoom veterans, and we've met many more people and organized many more actions than we might have imagined possible with the restrictions we faced. And now this March, we live with the possibilities and the uncertainties of masking or not, of reduced risk or not. But it does feel a bit like a glimmer of spring. And to mark this season, I want to share the words of poet Ada Limon with her poem, Instructions for Not Giving Up. Might be a good time to pay attention to your breathing and get yourself ready to conversation with us here. She says, more than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crabapple tree, more than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains, it's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come, patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us, a return to the strange idea of continuous living, despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then, I'll take it, the tree seems to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist into an open palm. I'll take it all. So as we're about to begin the season of spring, we come together this week at our open table to take it all. We welcome everybody committed to ending homelessness, who's willing to have respectful dialogue about different strategies along the way. And as we meet together, we agree on a few norms of our interaction for this Zoom space, to use the raise hand function whenever you wish to speak. Rob will recognize you then. And if you're going to be doing other things as we're together, to put your video off. People often wave their hands about when talking on the phone, and it's quite distracting. So do that, and also keep your mute function on when you're not speaking. We also, for those of you who are new, use the chat function as a real way to interact with each other. So there's nothing disrespectful about writing to individuals or to the whole group with questions or comments. And in fact, if you have lots of questions and lots of comments, it helps us with our other norms, which are to speak one person at a time, to make space and take space. So limit our conversations to making sure that we don't take up too much of others' times. So with this, I'd like to then say, for anyone who's new today, maybe someone's coming to speak or just coming here for the first time, to just introduce yourself and not explain your organization, but if you belong to one, to indicate what it is. Maybe put your information in the chat if you'd like people to contact you, and look in the chat for any questions they might have about you. So if you want to either raise your hand, or I can't see you all, just unmute yourself and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Casey, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, everyone. I'm Casey Bentz. I am an MSW intern for RI International CRC in Parkland, and I'm also a Lakewood police officer. So I'm here today to get a better understanding of what you guys do and what resources you guys have available that could help me support the people that we support here at CRC and in the community that I work as a police officer.
Well, welcome, Casey. Great to have you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name's can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Torrid? Right?
Yeah, Tarad. Yeah, my name's
Tarad.
Tarad Ryan. Me and my fiance actually just purchased a home in Bonnie Lake, and we're moving out to Pierce County. And I work for Mary's Place. I'm a prevention specialist, and I'll be working for Mary's Place when I move out to Pierce County. We also run a nonprofit called the 4C Coalition that works with at-risk youth of color in the Seattle area. And that's been around for about 19 years. And the reason we joined this coalition here is we're trying to build a tiny home population community in Pierce County when we get down there. And I see Teresa, you're putting your hands up. So these are all good signs. I like that. But yeah, we're starting a tiny home community out there. When we get there, we've got already people financing in order. We've got a lot of people in line to play their positions. However, oh, Caleb, hey, I used to work with Caleb from Vine Maple Place. Hey, but yeah, sorry. But yeah, we're going to be starting a tiny home. And so basically, we're trying to find out how to kind of navigate the process. You know, like I said, we've got everything in line from financing to the builders to we just need to find land and kind of figure out what the zoning situations look like.
Well, welcome, Torrid. This is a good group for you to be part of. We welcome your presentation of yourself.
Thank you.
So great.
I'll let you carry on. Thanks.
So Ash, how about you? I see you have the same last name as I do. Great.
Yeah. I can go, or I know Shannon, it looks like she raised her hand before I did.
Oh, okay.
So Shannon can go.
All right. Well, Shannon and then Ash afterwards. Shannon, go ahead.
Hello. So I'm returning after a few years of not being able to make it to this coalition meeting. I used to come back in 2018 and 2019 when I was a student at Tacoma Community College working with the CHRP program. I graduated from Tacoma Community College in 2020, and then I just graduated from Evergreen Tacoma last week. And this week I started a position at Comprehensive Life Resources as a homeless outreach specialist. So I mentioned to them that I used to come to this coalition meeting back in the day. So they said I could join in today. So here I am.
Well, that's wonderful, Shannon. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Ash.
Yeah, hi y'all. My name is Ash. I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I am the Education and Resource Coordinator at Rebuilding Hope Sexual Assault Center. So y'all might have seen Asta in this space. She is transitioning out and I'm kind of taking on some of her role. We are getting a new CAC, a new community specialist, so they will also be in this space. But in the meantime, I kind of wanted to just attend these meetings, get some information. And I appreciate y'all creating this space.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's really important work that you're doing, so thank you. So I don't see others with their hand raised. I don't know if you do, Rob, but if not, I'll turn it back to you.
I see Joe Perva has his hand up briefly.
Oh.
Joe, what's up?
So clearly I'm not new here, and I'm only raising my hand for to introduce Charles Wright, who's our new operations manager at Aspen Port. Hey, how you guys doing?
Hi, Charles.
Glad to be here.
Great. Glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
What was Charles' role? I missed that.
Previous to my role, I was just a village operator, and now I'm a shelter operations manager at Aspen Court.
Wonderful. That's really an important facility, and we're glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Glad to be part of the team.
All right. Anyone else who would like to introduce themselves just before we get started with our first item this morning? All right, so welcome all the new folks and the returning folks, and let's get started with this morning's meeting. So as we do every week, we wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening on the streets this week. This section of the meeting is an opportunity for people to share what they're seeing in their community, changes that are taking place with those who are houseless this week, and identify any needs that we might be able to, as a group, address as those needs are changing this week. So again, use the raise hand function or simply wave and let me know you'd like to speak, but I'd love to hear from folks who are doing direct outreach if there's information they'd like to share with the larger group. Casey.
Hey, I have a question on resources for finding warm clothing to provide to homeless individuals in the Pierce County area. When I'm on patrol, I encounter a lot of people that are not willing to go to, not in a place where they want to go to a shelter, maybe based on an experience in the past or something. And I don't really have other resources for them, but I at least want to leave them with something to keep them warm, especially during the winter months. And we don't have a ton of resources where I'm at. So does anyone have any ideas for me?
Yeah, so Rosemary, did you want to help address that?
Well, I just wanted to personally say that I like to do treasure hunts for sources like that. So I actually have a bunch of winter things right now that I'd be happy to share with you. I'll put my name in the chat, and this is true for anybody. I'm an inveterate thrift store hound, and so I find amazing things and wash them up, and so I'm happy to share them with you, and we can be in touch offline later.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Another resource potentially could be the Just Threads organization in downtown Tacoma. But of course, I don't know how much they work with people who are doing outreach to give things to you to be able to hand out in the community, so much as people going into that site to get things they need. But that may be a resource as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Richard, did I see you have your hand up?
Sure, just on the, so we like with Rosemary just said, we get a lot of winter goods coming in. Our surplus right now, we've been taking to Just Threads, which I understand in the next week or so is going to be reopening for walk-in traffic. Initially, they received all of my suits and ties that I no longer have for people going to court, but it turns out they also provide people clothes to anybody walking in that needs them. So I know that they are a resource that I'm learning more about as I go. Also, we visited the Tacoma Rescue Mission the other day, and I didn't look at their clothes bank, but I know that they also have one there. And then you could also reach out to me directly offline. We get things. This last week, I needed 2 tents, and I put a call out, and 2 tents arrived from Amazon the next day. So if you have specific needs, I'd also be a resource for you that way.
And one other thing before I call on Jay is that if urgent needs come up, you can always use the mailing list. So there's roughly 700 people on the Tacoma Pierce County Coalition and Homelessness mailing list. You can find that at pchomeless.org. And we quite frequently have folks make individual requests there, and we don't always see the thread because we urge people not to reply all. But I believe a lot of those needs get met through just calls out on the mailing list. Jay, you had your hand up?
A good idea also is to go to churches and your local area emergency centers and mental health places. A lot of those places end up getting donations or extra and they get moved around, but it never hurts to go to them and be like, hey, call me if you have something.
Thank you, Jay. And Patricia has her hand up, and then we'll go back to Richard.
There's 2 options. Like Goodwill has multiple programs. You can directly connect with them. It's not about the stores. It's about they can get the needs of an individual and build up the resources. Also, Lived Experience Coalition, I'm part of that, has a Pierce County division that we can directly work with individuals in receiving outreach. And I'm putting my direct contact in chat for you, Casey. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. So Richard, you had your hand up again.
Yeah, I think I've got 3 things. I'll try and make it as quick as possible. Last week, I stole an idea out of Stockton, California, and put out a thing we calling Tacoma Tent News. And with help from another person on this call, we were able to get that out inside of a week. And I've been delivering that to encampments, and I sent it along to the coalition listserv. So if you've seen that out there, I'm part of the cause of that mischief. But the lead story on that, the second item, the lead piece of information was to provide campers information about the memorial service on Sunday at 5. And a few months ago, they had asked me, because I was talking with them about people that had died on the street, and they go, how do we find out about this? And so this time we were able to get the information in advance to campers about the memorial, and any distribution you could give to that would be welcome. If you're in Tacoma and you need copies, I do have some, and I can probably get more. So we're going to plan on a second issue mid-April. And anyway, that's just the idea of communicating directly with homeless folks in the tent seemed so good. We just went ahead and did that. And then finally, on Tuesday is the next sweep of an encampment along J Street from 7th to about 13th. and then from J up to MLK. And I invite anybody on the call to join me. I'll probably be down there from 9:30 and 10 o'clock, roughly that time. I suspect we'll have some coffee and donuts to distribute to people. But mainly it's just to be there as witness to the operation, what's going on, and providing some moral support to the people that are there. Jeffrey, I saw you had a question on chat, which is where the people are going to go. Many of them do not know. And my instruction to them in the newsletter was simply to say, where are we supposed to go? And I think that would be a good question for them to ask of the city officials as they're being swept this coming Tuesday. So those are quickly the three things I've got going on, Rob.
Thank you, Richard. And, while you're on screen, maybe next week you'd like to share a little bit about the trip you're going to do, your research trip, if you're interested in sharing that with the group.
Yes, I'd love to share about the research trip. And then next week, too, I will have an agenda. I hosted a conversation in December called Voices to End Homelessness. And we are going to repeat a similar format on March 31st with elements of the new adopted plan as the prompter for the conversation. And I'll have more information about that next week as well. So yes, I'd be happy to talk about the forthcoming trip. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So anyone else with needs or thoughts they need to share this week with the larger group about what they're seeing on the streets this week?
I have a little tiny one that's sort of on the streets. So I went to a really cool graduation ceremony from a kind of workforce readiness program that Goodwill put together with Joe at Aspen Court. And the 22 graduates of this program looked amazing, like the way they were kind of moving through the graduation space and holding themselves, and they looked confident and they looked loved and they looked ready for work. And I was really excited to see, one of them I recall having seen on the streets at one point in Fife, and it just was really encouraging, like what the shelter is doing, but also what this workforce development program kind of did and where those folks are. So that was exciting, happiness. So nice job. Joe was there, and I'm sure some other folks here. So nice job.
Fantastic. Well, let's wrap up this segment with a comment from Patricia, and then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Patricia?
Oh, I was just going to comment on what Garrett says, that Goodwill is not just the shops for resale, but what the monies that go to support those, particularly like homeless, low income, develop skills, they have all sorts of resources. So just keep that in mind as you're doing your work. Thank you.
Thank you for that reminder, Patricia. So let's see, our next item on the agenda, I'm not seeing our community spotlight guest in the listing of folks in the meeting yet. And that was going to be Rick from St. Leo's Parish. So why don't we move on, unless Rick's here under another name. So let me give that pause for a moment.
I'll call Rick and see what's up.
Okay. What I will do is let's shift to the presentation that we were going to have Dana share with us regarding the CHRP program. And then if Rick is here at the end of that, we'll switch back over to him. So Dana?
Good morning. Can I get an ability to screen share here?
Certainly. Here, just give me a minute. All right, you should have that now.
Let me get back to where I was here. Okay. All righty. How's that look?
Looking good.
Great. So the program that I'm going to present today is called the Community Homeless Resolution Partnership. So the acronym is CHRP, and we call it CHRP, even though it really has nothing to do with birds or Twitter. But the idea for this program was hatched in late 2018. So CCS Family Housing Network received a very generous grant from a private donor. It was called the Day One Grant. And so for the next year, we went about planning the program, developing all the policies and procedures, and doing extensive community outreach. So in March of 2020, CHRP took flight. So what is CHRP? Well, it's a partnership of groups and organizations that are not necessarily housing providers, but they do come in contact with homeless individuals and households pretty much on a daily basis through their work. So essentially, they just operate as another CE entry point. So back in 2014, diversion conversations were implemented into what was at that time a centralized intake system. So at that time, folks that became homeless would have one phone number to call, which in itself was somewhat of a barrier. And then they would be able to schedule a housing appointment. So at that housing appointment, they would go in and they pretty much were just giving their demographics, and then they were placed on a list. So what we did was as we implemented the diversion, we converted our system to centralized intake. And so when they did get their appointment, and they had many ways to be able to get an appointment, they would come in, and of course we take their demographics, but we would also listen to their story and how they did become homeless, and talk about various ways that we might be able to solve their housing crisis. So during the creative conversations, the goal is to come up with a housing plan that could be accomplished in roughly 30 to 60 days. So what we do in those conversations is we explore the natural supports that a household may have and what other resources they may have to help them with their homeless crisis. And so diversion actually is designed for the low barrier households. And the barriers being things such as bad credit or evictions or possibly felonies. So after this conversation, the household at that time chooses whether they want to enter into diversion or if they prefer to enter into our homeless system. So some of the diversion options that we explore are, of course, reestablishing rental. Also, we take a look at shared housing, and we can do relocation, to name a few. So if the household does choose to enter the system, that would be what's referred to as the priority pool. Then they will be guided through that process by a housing professional. So as we know, data drives funding. So we are studying and analyzing our dashboards continually, looking for any weaknesses or strengths or trends. So in 2021, the CE system conducted 4,244 conversations. And of those numbers, 1,269 chose to enter diversion, which represents 30% of the conversations. And of those 1,269, 548 were successfully housed, which represents 43% of those entering diversion. And then there were 77 returns to the system. So will the CHRP participants learn how to have these creative conversations? Oh, absolutely. We do have a pretty good training program. It's pretty interactive. The trainees would be meeting seasoned professional coaches within our diversion system. And then they'll be training alongside of new professionals that will become actual CE specialists. So who does CHRP look to serve? Well, we're looking for families with geographic or demographic barriers to accessing our CE system. And this could be people out in the rural areas where there's no public transportation and there's limited cell phone service, or it could be in the urban area where they might have a reluctance to approach the system, maybe due to language barriers or possibly illegal status. So if you want to be a homeless resolution partner, how do you qualify? Well, simply reach out and request an application and submit it. And then that application proceeds to a committee which vets it. And so if approved, that is when the training would begin. So the training process is 4 steps. And the first step is what we call the creative conversation training, which in person is 2 days. And currently we're doing them virtually, which is a 4 half-day training. And that is facilitated by the Center for Dialogue and Resolution. And so step 2 is observing current CE professionals in actual conversations. Step 3 is doing one-on-one coaching sessions with a certified coach, which in this case would be me. And then the 4th step is the trainee is actually conducting the conversations themselves, and they are being shadowed. And so the whole process takes roughly about 30 hours. It is self-paced, and then I can absolutely be very flexible and work around people's current jobs. So now that you're trained, what is next? So the Homeless Resolution Navigator is able to conduct their own independent conversations. They do have access to our temporary financial assistance. And then they also have technical assistance from CCS, which is pretty much me. And so if you're interested, what will your organization need? Well, we ask that you just commit the time to complete the training process, attend the brief monthly technical assistance meetings, and also attend a bi-monthly collaborative. And then we also ask that you have a great interest and be an enthusiastic community member. And then a desire to learn, as you will be trained by professionals in the homeless system. And what we find is that some of the skills that you'd be learning can be very valuable in your other areas of work. But above all, we ask that you be patient and have a commitment to, and have that commitment to learn and want to help all of the homeless people that you come in contact with. So we are welcoming anyone to soar with CHRP.
Thank you, Dana. So there were a couple of questions in the chat. Let's see, I saw Casey posted, will this program help cover amounts owed by tenants to former landlords where collections or a judgment is issued by a court?
Well, we currently we don't necessarily focus on that. Primarily, it's just the assistance that's going to be needed to either get them relocated or get them into some type of housing.
Okay. And I see Valerie just asked about how folks can connect with you. She wants to connect the Key Peninsula coalitions with you.
Sure. Yeah, and I've presented out there actually to Key Peninsula, and I actually have a partner out there, which is the community and schools of Key Peninsula. So we do have a presence out there, but I'll put all my contact information in the chat.
Fantastic. Do other folks have questions?
Is this training for those who currently CHRP does not have funding for housing individuals, but that's something that we're definitely working on and hope to acquire that ability in the near future.
Great. Rianne.
Can we get the deck distributed to the list?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, there's details that I'd like to go over. Thank you.
Sure.
Perfect. And as a reminder too, when after this meeting, Garrett posts these presentations to the coalition website. So it probably take a little longer than Dana sending you the slide deck, but that's another option for folks if they want to see this again. And thank you for your comment in the chat, Heather. We see that too. All right. So thank you, Dana, for the presentation. A lot of interest. So this is a great topic to bring up here. And I am looking at the folks in our attendee listing and don't see Rick here yet, Teresa. So
I emailed him and left a voice message. This is not on him. This is on me. He's got several email addresses and I happen to choose one that he must not check regularly. So I will get rid of those so that the next time I communicate. Anyway, I'm sure it's not because he doesn't want to be here. So I'll reconnect with him and make it right. Sorry about that.
Great. No problem. All right. And Dana has posted her contact information in the chat for everyone. So let's move to the next item in our agenda. And this is one that really love Garrett to be able to fill us in. We had the Pierce County Council this week pass or ratify the comprehensive plan to end homelessness. And Garrett, can you kind of give us a summary of the amendments and what they passed and where we go next?
Sure. Well, the comprehensive plan passed, so we're all done. That's it.
Everything's solved.
So county council, right? I mean, I do this background all the time and you're probably tired of it, but we all as a coalition put some pressure on our government to take a little more accountability, and they said, okay. And this is the formal statement that they are taking accountability to end homelessness in Pierce County. So in a way, it's talking JFK into building a rocket ship to put man on the moon. And now we've talked him into it, and it's time to build the rocket ship. And I think we know how to build rocket ships. Actually, we don't, but just roll with me on the analogy. And it's just a matter, right, of getting enough funding to NASA at this point. So that's basically where we sit. So we've passed this plan, and it really just is a roadmap. And I think more than anything, it's a commitment. And it's a commitment that as a county employee, I intend to hold the county accountable and myself accountable. And I'm expecting all of you to be holding us accountable and helping us get there, right? It's not a you and them, it's an us. And it's going to be a long path. So the things that we're doing now, so some of the things in the resolution were that by December 31st, we have to have a unified regional office plan put together. So we'll be hiring a consultant. We set aside $100,000 to do that, which probably isn't enough. but that's where we're starting from. And again, that goal is for that work to be done by December 31st so that a unified regional office will be implemented by July 1st of 2023. And what that looks like will be something that gets determined by that consultant-led process. So that's a continued commitment on the county's part, and the county council particularly, to taking direction from the steering committee and the community of experts. That's all of you. And so what that looks like will be determined by us, as a community. So that's one thing. Another thing that's required is by October, we need to have a funding plan put in place. And obviously filling $100 million a year gap, right? I think it's more fun to say over the next decade, we need $1 billion in homelessness in Pierce County, right? I just think 100 million is kind of lost its punch. I think billion, right? If you want to make people's knees weak, is really the number to go for. And so putting that plan together is how we get from where we are now to that amount. And that'll also be a community conversation, right? Bake sales aren't going to cut it. Some initial spending, right? And again, it's always good to put the $9 million, which is amazing and will change lives, right? Our $100,000 is amazing and changes lives, right? Like the program that Dan has just talked about, is something that's impactful. It's the scale, right? Where the money comes in, not the success of what we do. So the initial $9 million of spending, right, is going to a number of different areas, right? Drop in the bucket, but I think it's going to be impactful. So making our coordinated entry system function better by getting folks trained quicker, helping to support our nonprofits as they develop themselves with technical assistance. Some little things like a transportation pilot project that'll put a 1-year bus pass into the hands of 500 people experiencing homelessness in the community. So a new shelter project, there's funding for a shelter outside of Tacoma. So a number of those items are in the plan, as well as some case management. So case management around rental assistance and homeless prevention. So people that are in a crisis, but not yet literally homeless, not yet, that sounds terrible, that we're going to prevent from becoming literally homeless. And case management to extend our critical time intervention, which is a real strong evidence-based approach to assisting folks as they navigate the homeless system. So extending that beyond just chronically homeless to the general population. So as we go along, what will accountability and transparency look like? So from my perspective, it's going to be continuing to have these conversations here, continuing to be able to meet with anyone to talk about the comprehensive plan anytime. And we'll have an advisory board that's remashing of the steering committee. So most of the members from the steering committee, which includes a representative from the coalition, right? So Maureen Howard with Rob as a backup. And that's going to meet monthly. And I suspect more than that. Again, a lot of this is relying on the community to sort of indicate what level of engagement they want with that process. I feel like I'm talking too long. Am I doing okay, Rob?
You're doing well. I think the key thing is, and we're going to do a breakout conversation that's related to this right after this, but the key thing is that we recognize as a coalition, we need to make sure that we can do whatever we can to help move the plan forward with urgency. So I think that's one of the key things I was hoping we could take away from this morning is, yay, the plan is passed. Now the next layer of hard work begins. And one of the most vital needs that the coalition can serve is to make sure this stays front and center and moving forward.
And just to throw out too, one of the big parts of the plan is transparency and accountability and really publishing information. And as you might know, I'm a big fan of publishing a lot of information. And that's a slow process right now for some sucky reasons that don't have to do with intent, that don't have to do with motivation. They just have to do it like we need to rebuild our data warehouse at the county in a new platform. And that's just some problems internal that we're addressing. And we currently have a bunch of staff positions open that I'm struggling to learn how HR works to get things hired. So some of the things that are kind of sucky reasons but are real. So working aggressively on that. But anyway, to your point, Rob, that's just me making excuses. But that again, how many people are homeless right now? Right, that should be published on our website, and we should looking at it, because that's the one statistic that matters, right? Like all this other stuff is so important. Like going to that meeting and looking, the graduation from this job training, like all that stuff really matters. But if you want to look at one number, it's how many people are homeless in Pierce County. So okay, I got off topic again. Rob, you even told me how to recenter myself, and I didn't. So
no, it's good. So one other piece of context is you mentioned the $9 million that were allocated as part of the resolution that the county council passed this week. Just the other reminder is that the county council also put, what was it, $23 million in their budget to secure property and move forward with the Community First Village project,
which has a $500,000 basically proof of concept, I don't know what the right term, viability study that is going to be wrapping up this summer. So Delmar, Algie, and John Barbie are the human services representatives, with Steve O'Ban, who's heavily involved in the executive's office around behavioral health issues, who's working on that. So that's 25 million, I think, 23, you're probably right. Working, again, tiny houses, mobile homes, acquiring big piece of property. So that is continuing to move forward.
Yeah, so it's not actually it's in addition to the 9 million. So there is more being invested in the issue of tackling homelessness. And then again, as I understand it, the current focus for that Community First Village is to serve folks who are considered chronically homeless. So we'll see how that study comes out. So that's probably enough context from Garrett and I. Let's shift gears over to Mike Yoder, who's going to introduce our topic for today's breakout conversation.
Thank you, Rob and Garrett. That was lots of encouraging comments in the chat about how monumental this is. I hope you look around this room and feel very proud to be a part of a group that did something that we may look back on and say, the community of people who really care about those experiencing homelessness spoke up and pushed its own community forward in a bold new way to truly make a difference. So congratulations to all of you for being a part of a movement that is getting us somewhere that I think has more significance to take us towards the finish line of ending homelessness than anything, many of us have felt the possibility about for a long, long time. So we were a big part of helping move this. Several individuals in this space, you know who you are, were key catalysts, but we all have a role to play. Now, we got the ball rolling. We actually got to the start line. We're officially in the race. The plan has, we've pushed and we've contributed to the ideas, and we got our community leaders, our county council, to say, let's start this race. So now we have to not give up. It's not over. It's to Garrett's humorous comment at the beginning of his report. Yeah, let's just go home. We got the comprehensive plan passed. No. Now the fun starts, people. And I think because of what we showed up and did and how we contributed before to getting this plan started, now we have to be very, very involved as a coalition and in very, very different ways as individuals in our agencies, as community leaders. There'll be a lot of opportunities for us to participate in helping guide this. Now, there is going to be a formal process with a revitalized steering committee and consultants involved, but we want to keep our fingers on the pulse in this group right here. So today's just a very, very first initial little breakout discussion. We just want to seed and begin our thinking. As this comprehensive plan is now just days into reality, we want to start thinking in light of this, we got to start thinking about this system. We have an opportunity now to really do something radically different. So we've got to think about what are the things that are working well. Let's not assume we're not doing any good work. Actually, a lot of us are doing a lot of amazing things. We just heard one of those amazing, innovative things we're doing in our homeless system. It's called CHRP. I mean, it's an amazing, unique aspect of the homeless response system in Pierce County. So let's make sure that is resourced to continue on. Like, what are the things we're doing well we want to make sure are baked into the system we're now reforming, recreating, that are working well. But, let's take this as an opportunity to call out the things that, need to be fixed and need to be improved. Let's think about things like interagency handoffs. If we're going to have a comprehensive, unified regional homeless system, what are things we want to make sure are addressed as part of the plan to do that? And we want to lift these things up. So I think, navigating the system, agency handoffs, those kinds of things, I think there's room for improvement. Let's start calling out some of those specific challenges we have. Even, how we do case management and the capabilities that we have or don't have to do the kind of case management we know would really help a lot of our high barrier clients move forward. There's not enough resources for that in-depth hand-holding that some of our clients really need. So let's start thinking through these aspects of our current system. Boy, we don't have enough time to remake the whole system today, but this is a seeding of an idea of what are things that we want to name. We want more funding to do more of this good stuff, and here's some things that we need to make sure are addressed to do these things better. So that's the topic for today. I have a feeling we may be continuing further conversations along this line in the months to come, as we have an opportunity to help shape this new opportunity.
Definitely. So here's the drill for those of you who have attended these meetings. You've been in these breakout conversations before. If you're new here, I'm going to create breakout rooms with 5 or 6 people in each room. Please, will someone in your room take some notes, and we're going to discuss that topic of that Mike has helped queue up for us, which is what are the aspects of our current system that are working well, and then what are those that need to be addressed or improved as we move forward with implementing the comprehensive plan to end homelessness. So let's spend until 10:10. So I'll have about 16 minutes to consider this conversation, and I will start this now. Have a good conversation, folks. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that was a good time for some conversation, and I look forward to seeing what people have to share in the chat. Yeah, and here come the comments. Thank you again, and I did carve out a little bit more time for today's discussion than we had on the agenda, so we are a little bit tight on the second hour, and I want to be respectful of folks' time. So what I am going to do is I want to thank Timothy Harris again for pulling together the notes from last week's conversation. I'm going to drop those in the chat so that everybody can look at that summary from last week. And I am going to shift over now to our government updates. So first up would be Caleb from the city of Tacoma. Do you have anything to share with us today?
Oh, yes, I do, Rob. Thank you. I didn't see Monique is here today because she is just finalizing the stuff at the mitigation site at 82nd and Pacific. So just kind of a quick update on that. I know that she was able to share last time, but the office trailer was delivered last Friday, and the shower trailer was delivered, I think, on Wednesday as well. And so they're just prepping up, including doing the platforms, getting those ready, the tent set up. And it looks like by the end of the month, this should be up and running. So that's super exciting. So just wanted to update you all on that.
Fantastic. And any further updates on the sweep that's coming up on J Street?
I don't have any updates right now. I think you guys mentioned that in the beginning of when those were happening. I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of when it was posted. I think it was posted on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken.
So the information that Allison had shared with the coalition is that the sweep would begin on the 22nd.
Okay.
And again, the boundaries were on South J Street between South 7th and South 13th.
Yep. And they're preparing for some work there and why they're being cleaned up and removed. Also, another update on the Lighthouse Warming Center to extend operations is going to be through April 30th. So for some of you that may not know, that's a temporary shelter for 25 individuals, 30 when an inclement weather event occurs. So that was set up in early January of 2022. So far, 80 individuals have been served at that lighthouse since then. And just kind of an update, 9 have actually been connected to housing and 5 to other services, while 9 have also been vaccinated for COVID as well during that time. So that's pretty exciting news too as well. I also will add into the chat the city funding temporary and emergency shelter performance. So I'll add that into there as well. And just a reminder about encampment outreach, the SEALs HEAL team. So that is the Homeless Engagement and Alternative Liaison team, formerly known as the Housing Outreach or Homeless Outreach Team, HOT. So that's kind of transitioned if some of you don't know that. And they're the outreach team that is connected usually to a PD officer. And so they go out and they provide individuals opportunities to connect to shelters, behavioral health, substance use, and employment services. For this last week, they were able to visit 13 locations, resulting in 45 individuals being contacted. 10 of them were actually able to accept shelter or connections to other services as well. So, and then last one I want to add into the Pierce County Rental Assistance. This program provides up to 12 weeks or 12 months of back assistance dating back to March 2020 and 3 months to future assistance. So the city has provided 868 households with just over 6 million in rental assistance. So this is actually an increase of 9 households and just under 60,000 in assistance over the last report, and 1,863 households with about 2.2 million in utility assistance, which is about 28 households increase. About 30,000 from its last report. And I think Garrett also has probably sent that in the past, but I'll send that information about the rental assistance through Pierce County as well. That's all the updates I have.
Thanks, Caleb. And Valerie actually will offer an update on rental assistance as well here coming right up. So thank you. And anybody with any questions for Caleb, please. Oh, I see Garrett has his hand up.
I have a question. So I'm sure you have lots to do starting in, but one thing that Linda Stewart mentioned was that when your position was filled, that the city would be taking up work on their strategic plan around homelessness. And I was wondering if you'd had a chance to touch in on that and had any sense of when that might be picking up again.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett. Yeah, so that's kind of my big first project as well. We need to have an update for the council here at the first quarter, so coming here pretty soon. So that's the first thing I'm diving into right now. So I've gone through that document. We're, of course, trying to make sure that it aligns with the affordable housing action strategy of the city, promoting affordable housing and long-term, solutions, as well as, of course, Pierce County's comprehensive strategy too as well. So we're trying to make sure that they fit. And so I'm going through all of those documents to make sure that I am up to speed on how those kind of work. So that is definitely on my plate right now as we speak.
All right, thank you for the updates from the city, Caleb. And let's shift over to Jeff with updates from Pierce County Human Services.
Hello. Yes, I have a few updates for you today. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. There's a really good basketball game on right now. NCAA championships are going on, and my favorite team, the Ohio State Buckeyes, is on another screen over here. Sorry. We have some funding that's still available out there with a funding opportunity for the Housing and Essential Needs Program. That's about $4.3 million. Applications are due by March 31st. That's a program that serves persons who are eligible, and eligibility is determined by the state for the temporary disability, basically is the eligibility to be in that program. We are finalizing and will be announcing any day soon the awards for our homeless housing program funding. That's the really large annual funding we provide. We have right around $12 million that we're allocating to projects. So that will be announced very soon for projects to start July 1st. There's a mix of existing projects as well as some new projects that will be funded with those dollars. And then lastly, HUD earlier this week announced the Continuum of Care Awards for 2022. And Pierce County's Continuum of Care received just over $4.1 million in awards for the Continuum of Care funding for projects that are being renewed. There are a couple of new projects in that list as well. The first one that comes to my mind is the Hilltop Lofts that MDC submitted an application for some permanent supportive housing on the Hilltop. So that is a new project that is coming online. But there is one other new project and the rest are all renewals of those funds. So we're just busy contracting for these funds, working with our committees that make funding decisions to determine who will receive these funds, and yeah, just busy.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for all that you're doing and getting these dollars out the door to provide services. All right, Valerie, any updates this week on rental assistance?
Sure. So as you may have heard, the postcards have been mailed out. So they should be in every single residential address in Pierce County, including City of Tacoma. And so that will give information on mortgage assistance, rental assistance, utility assistance, Tacoma Pro Bono, and anything else we could squeeze on a little bitty postcard. So that's exciting. I love that we're able to do that through this program and really reach every household, because whether you need assistance or you will know someone who does, you will now have the available information. For rental assistance, we are doing 4 housing help events. So I'll post those links. Those are at the amazing Pierce County libraries. Tacoma Pro Bono is at those events, as is some of our very cool providers. And so that will be somewhere folks can go and get updates. They can go and get help applying. So we will, sorry, Cynthia. So we will work on that and get the housing help events are scheduled for the next 4. Sorry, it's distracting to get notices. And then also we are having 2 events with the landlord Q&As. This is our 4th landlord Q&A events. And this is our 3rd tenant Q&A event. So I put those links for folks to register, and they can register for those. And Tacoma Pro Bono will be there. Washington State Department of Landlord Mitigation will be there, which is very, very cool. And the Center for Dialogue and Resolution will be there to talk about their ERPP program. So the links were provided earlier in the chat. Feel free to share those with anyone who's landlord, anyone who's a tenant. It really gives them a lot of amazing options and ability to ask a lot of questions, because what they are doing is super, super confusing right now with all the changes that came out in 2021. As far as the rental assistance program, we have spent just under $110 million in the last year, and we will continue doing that until all of the dollars are out. And then the state is currently working on a permanent program for rental assistance. So as soon as we have more information on that and when the notice of funding availability will be released, we will make sure that is sent out to the coalition as well.
Thank you, Valerie, and you're doing amazing work, and thank you on behalf of everybody who's benefiting in the community. All right, and our next update would come from Jenny from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jenny. I'm from Tacoma Pierce County Health Department. I'm a liaison in the Communicable Disease Department for anyone who has not met me before. As far as COVID news, we are seeing really great data. The most recent data we have showing cases decreasing, outbreaks decreasing, hospitalizations decreasing. So that's great news. There's also been the lifting of the mask mandate. So not sure what that is going to, what we're going to see with that, but please continue to be diligent. COVID is not over. It's going to just be worked into part of our lives. And I just encourage folks who have not gotten vaccinated. If there's anyone out there still who wants to be vaccinated that has not, please, please, please go get boosted. If you haven't gotten boosted, I'll put our link in the chat. I'm hoping and I'm assuming everyone in this group is vaccinated. We have you've possibly seen in the news, there's lots of flux in the funding and COVID funding from the federal government, and that is definitely going to impact and is impacting our work. And so we are really working hard to maintain the services that we've provided to shelters, to outreach teams in terms of vaccines for COVID, testing for COVID, but we are being impacted. So yeah, just trying to do the best we can, thinking of different models and how to continue to serve folks. I mentioned this last week. I just want to say it again, and I'll say less than I said last week and then just drop some context in the chat. But there is a rise in congenital syphilis cases in Pierce County that's really concerning. They're among people experiencing homelessness, specifically females aged 20 to 35. Congenital syphilis is very dangerous for babies. And so we are hoping that if you work with people who are pregnant, people who may become pregnant, we just want you to be aware of this problem that's happening. We're seeing, obviously in the community, we see people seeking prenatal care later and later in pregnancy for various reasons. And that's just can be real disastrous if syphilis is not diagnosed and treated, and it's actually treated very, very easily and quickly. So if you have questions about that, I'll drop my information. I'll drop our STD clinic contact information and my colleague, Teresa Cooper. So please follow up with us. And then finally, I just want to say, as many of you know, I've been attending these calls for at least a year now, maybe a couple years. Wow, a couple years probably. It's been very much COVID focused. Again, I'm in communicable disease, so that makes sense. But there are lots of other things happening in the world besides COVID, and we as a department are really working on a transition of sorts to how do we prioritize these other important public health issues again. And so I want to hear from people who are in this group every week on how I can do better in my role as a liaison between the department, communicable disease division, and the homeless service provider and advocate groups, and what I can bring to this meeting. I won't always be the subject matter expert, but I can certainly find folks who are, and I want to be really useful and bring information from the health department as a whole that would be most value add to this group. So reach out to me. I think you all have my email address, but I'll drop it in the chat. And that's all I have. Are there any questions for me?
Jay has a question.
Okay.
This is something, hello, that I'm curious about. How many of our outreach groups and how many of us actually talk about the sexual side of being homeless and not having the things we need? Condoms, self-care kits, things for women to clean themselves up. How much of that do we not recognize because it's not a topic we don't want to talk about? And how can we start implementing giving out condoms, having safe sexual practices, protecting our community at that level?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for asking that question. I'm just looking real quick to see if Verna from the MRC might be on the call today. It looks like she is. Excellent question. Like I said, I personally am on sort of a mission to break down silos at the department. I work in the network team, which works with providers, but we have a whole STD team. We've got community health workers. I'm trying to better understand what they're already doing and then help bolster that and encourage and advocate for those that community outreach that needs to happen about STIs. The MRC actually, just in terms of an immediate action that's happening, the MRC, I just totally lost what MRC stands for. Medical Reserve Corps, that TBCHE partners with, is actually doing a pilot project right now, going out weekly. They've gone out once and they're going out 3 or 4 times in April with a specific focus on STD STDs and bringing condoms and bringing other education around that, bringing information about the syphilis outbreak. So that is something that's happening now. And I hope that even though that's kind of, my perception is that's kind of been in response to this syphilis outbreak, I think that it will be hopefully be an ongoing work. So I will take your concerns to our STD team and definitely bring that up. And please know that I'm working on it. I think Verna can speak to the MRC information too, if she would like. And then Rob says he can address this more. And yes, vaccine events have happened. We've also been hearing recently in terms of vaccines that the demand is really leveling off and is low. So we don't have the resources to send out to do vaccines where there won't be any vaccine uptake. But it sounded, Jay, like your question was more about STD. So I'll let Rob take it and then Verna if she wants to weigh in.
Yeah, actually, Verna, if you wanted to say something, this would be great.
Okay, well, I think you covered it pretty well, Jenny. Jan Runbeck and I have done a time so far. And we're planning on going out again soon with Marcus Taylor from the Health Department, STD Department, and working with them out there soon. So this is a pilot project right now. We're hoping it'll develop into something more down the road.
Thank you, Verna. And thank you, Jay, for that question. Did you have another question, or is your hand still up?
No, I'm sorry. I'll take that down.
Nope, no problem at all.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
I had a quick question. Jenny, did you mention the survey that the health department put out?
I did not mention it. I did get some feedback that it was geared towards medical providers. And I thought that there was, I sent the survey link out. I thought there was sort of a tree where you could say what kind of provider you were.
I took it and it seemed.
Did it seem applicable to
yeah,
like
I mean, there was a
okay.
couple times that I was like, who am I responding to this as?
Okay.
But,
okay. Yeah, so thanks, Garrett. So yeah, I sent out a survey and I can send it out again because I think it's still open. I'll double check with our team here. That is from our health department asking for feedback about the COVID response. So we definitely want to hear that. You can always reach out. I had a couple people reach out to me directly and share feedback. And I will only share that on with others if it's okay. And I'll ask if you want it to be confidential, anonymous. But I will either try to find the link during the call or send it out again to the coalition. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Garrett. Let's shift now, and if there are other questions, please feel free to use the chat. Let's shift over to any updates. Didn't notice if we have anybody from the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management on today's call that had anything to share. All right, and not seeing anyone. Let's shift to the rest of our agenda, and we are running a bit behind, so I'll try to be quick. Next up is me talking about advocacy, and what I'm trying to do every week in these advocacy updates, especially now that we're outside of the legislative session, is just to highlight opportunities at the local level, so at the city of Tacoma and Pierce County in particular, where we can have an opportunity to influence conversation around issues related to homelessness. So the Tacoma City Council this next week is meeting in their study session. It's a joint meeting with the Tacoma Public Utilities Board. There are no items on the study session agenda that are announced that apply to our work. However, if you have the time to listen in at noon on Tuesday, please do. Sometimes things pop onto the agenda that are that come up under other items that do impact the topics that the coalition is concerned about. They're also on the Tuesday night meeting for the Tacoma City Council. There are no items in the legislation directly related to coalition business. However, there are a number of multifamily property tax exemption projects that are being voted on if people want to make comments on those sorts of things. The Pierce County Council on Monday at the Community Development Committee is, which takes place on the 21st at 1:30 p.m. They're scheduled to consider and begin talking about an ordinance regarding development regulations and zoning for safe parking. So this is a topic that I know will be discussed at the Safe Sites for All committee meeting on Monday. But let me paste in the chat the information about where you can learn more about this item. Sorry for the delay. So that link at the end allows you to go take a look at the proposed language for this ordinance that the county council is going to be discussing in this committee. And then again, for the at the state level, as a reminder, the state legislature wrapped up its short session on March 10th. I am reaching out to our friends at the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance to see if someone may be available to come speak with us next week to talk about kind of a summary of the legislation that did pass, and what that means for groups like our coalition, and then also what is seen as opportunities to do work and advocacy in the interim before the next legislative session, which will be a long session that starts next January. So look for that. I'm trying to line that up on the agenda for next week. That would be it for advocacy updates for this week. Any questions from folks? All right, so I will kick this over to Jan Runbeck. Would you like to give an update for the Safe Sites for All committee?
Yes, Rob, we are going to talk about a position that we should consider. So we're going to go over the details of what the county is proposing and how it fits or doesn't fit with what may be best practices. The other thing we're going to talk about is to develop the staging site, the planning for the staging sites throughout the county for inclement weather, declarations, and then just safe parking in all. But I do have a question while I have the floor. Nobody's talked about Project Homeless Connect. Isn't that coming up? And I'll turn it over to who knows more than I do.
That would be Mike.
Yes, it is coming up. We just finally secured a venue, which is going to be at St. Leo's Parish and Bix Hall, and it is in April. And so if you have, so we're actually trying to get the word out to our usual group of service providers that we know normally like to come and connect with our neighbors experiencing homelessness. And so we're trying to get the word out to you. We're going to have limited space. We want to keep some extra distancing just for an indoor event this spring there in the hall. So we're going to be a little limited with the vendors that we can invite into the space to provide services. So we're kind of keeping it to outreach to those that we're kind of especially inviting in so we can have the right mix of people providing the services that we want. But if you really, really want to be there at Project Homeless Connect, you can call the office at Associated Ministries and let us know, and I'm sure we can fit you in somewhere. But I believe it's scheduled for Wednesday, April 6th. We usually do those around 11 to 3. And we'll be needing some volunteers if we really want to come out and help. We have a good stable of people that we can usually count on. So we'll be going back to our usual group of people. But if you just want to show up and be there, it's a beautiful opportunity to be in a space with a wide group of our homeless service provider community and some clients that are there. And it's actually a wonderfully encouraging space. So come out, bring your organization out, provide your services to folks, or come out and just volunteer and meet people, serve people. It's a great opportunity. On our website, associateministries.org, you can sign up for vendor or volunteer.
Fantastic. Thanks for bringing that up, Jan, and thanks, Mike, for the information. And I see that Jenny asked you a question in the chat too, Michael. So, all right. So let's shift over to any coalition committee updates that we need to share with the larger group today. Rosemary, anything we need to share?
I don't have anything right now, so we'll have something next week, I'm thinking.
Okay. Fantastic. So this creates an opportunity for us to people to share general announcements, good trouble announcements with the group of us who are still in the meeting. Anything that folks would like to share? Feels like we kind of kicked that off a little bit with talking about Project Homeless Connect, but Rosemary.
One thing I forgot, the Race and Equity Committee, which is rather small right now, could use some more folks to join us. We meet twice a month from 3 to 4, and we'll be meeting again 2 weeks from yesterday. That will be on the website if anyone's interested in coming and discussing how we can be a more inclusive community. What I wanted to say in terms of announcements is that we've taken up doing a few outreach opportunities to other kinds of groups who are organized sometimes with a response to homelessness as part of their work, but they might be religious faith communities, they might be organizations that are to meet public needs. And we have a small conversation that we're willing to come and talk to an organization that has a general meeting that might profit from learning what the coalition is and does. So if you're part of a group that would appreciate someone coming to talk about the coalition, just how to be involved or even what it does, you can contact me. I put my information in the chat, or it's on the agenda at the welcome area where I do that. We're willing to come and spend 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever is necessary to introduce the work of the coalition to the group you're part of or that you think might be interested.
Thank you, Rosemary. And I see your hand, Richard. I've got a few folks lined up in front of you, and then we'll get to you. So Patricia.
This is just a thought to keep a grateful heart with the Pierce County Deputy, Dom Coletta, that passed. I just wanted people, as they do their work, the interactions. There was a shootout and the other officer was injured with the individual complying to the commands of the officer. But as we do our work, we are all connected. And I just want people to think of that in honor, and also whatever spiritual way, and prayers for the family. Leaves behind a wife and a 4-year-old. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Yes, that's a great reminder and context for the work we're doing this week. Janet, your hand's up.
Yeah, I put this in the chat, just a reminder, this Thursday at 4:30 is the Community Vitality and Safety Committee of the City Council. And I think maybe, probably, supposedly they will be making a recommendation to the City Council about the encampments, about banning the encampments. You can usually, again, there's public comment. So it'll just be interesting, to say the least, what they're going to do.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. I neglected to mention that during my advocacy update.
And now my phone's ringing.
Of course. Kathy, your hand's up. And you're muted right now. There you go.
Am I muted? Boy, we all need shirts. Am I on mute? Unmute yourself.
No, you're good.
So just a reminder that the Tacoma Tenants Union, we recently changed our name from organizing committee to union. That was part of the intent right from the beginning. I'm putting my contact information in the chat. If you have a tenant who is concerned about displacement, they don't know what their rights are or how to exercise them. Just a reminder to folks that the Tacoma Tenants Union is all about empowering people to help them self-advocate. We can advocate for people, but passing on our knowledge of how to navigate these housing insecurities. We have a lot of lived experience amongst our members. And so that's kind of what we do. We have a Facebook page, we have a work phone number, and I'm also putting in my new email address. Yes, yet another new email address for Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
We'll try to keep track.
Be patient. I say we're kind of like that pan of Jell-O that's in your fridge that you keep checking on to see if it's set up. Yeah, we're getting there.
Very good. Teresa, your hand's up.
So first, Rob posted the thing about Sunday's memorial in the chat. Please do take a look at that. I don't know if Ed's here or not, but anyway, there it is. And I have two things. One is that not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, which is the 30th, we've been working on some infographics. I should say Lori's been working on some infographics. Next week, we're going to really focus on our Pathways to Homelessness one. But the week after, we're going to start working on our next project, which is about Jan's pet project. That is, it's not just mortality, it's also morbidity. So if anybody who has data on that, or who has an interest in that, in helping us to make that a really great infographic, if you would like to join the Safe Sites for All campaign meeting on the 30th, which is at 11 a.m. and the invitation is on the coalition website, we'd be delighted to hear from you and have you join us in that work. Or if you don't have that time free and care about this, please just send something to Lori and I, because we're trying to put something together. The second thing I want to put out there is that sometimes I notice how Tacoma-centric we can be as a group. And so in our steering committee, we've been talking about the people on the other side of the bridge and the people that are on the outer segments of Pierce County. So if you're somebody who's doing something out there and you're feeling a little left out, or even if you're not feeling left out, even if you feel great about us, please be in touch with me. I'm going to put my email in the chat and let me know if maybe you want to do a community spotlight, or maybe we've also been talking about, should we do a session that really focuses on Pierce County and some of the, especially over the bridge, which can feel like you're in a different universe, but you're still part of us and we still care about you. So I'll put my email there. Please just be in touch and we'll figure out what happens next.
Thanks, Teresa. Garrett, your hand's up.
Sure, thanks. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on Maureen Howard. So most of you know Maureen, that she's going through some nasty cancer. And I just wanted you all to, if you got some time, put her in your thoughts and prayers. She's soldiering on. Things are going fine, but it's been a really rough week. So just want to kind of push some love in her direction.
Thank you, Garrett. I was really curious about that, actually. All right. Any other good trouble announcements for today's meeting? Yeah, Richard.
I just thank you for the comments that have reached out to me as a result of the Tacoma Tent News. And thank you especially I want to shout out to Lori Davenport for the fine graphics that went into that. But I would like to make a note out to everybody. If you've got a story, if you've got a program, something coming up that might fit in that format that you want to get the word out to people in the encampments, drop me a line and we'll see if there's a way we can get that done. I don't know what our publishing timeline is going to be just yet, but it's something that we could possibly include. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Richard. All right. So we have come to the end of our time today. The last item on our agenda is an opportunity to reflect on today's meeting. If you would like to share with the full coalition and with me what things went well today, what things didn't, what do we need to do better next week, and then also what are some topics that we need to cover in our upcoming meetings? One of the things that I do want to put out there as a placeholder is that we will create an ongoing weekly item related to the comp plan and homelessness, just to keep that front and center for the coalition. So that will be a new item that we will have on our agenda going forward. And I will try to coordinate with Garrett to see what we might be able to help inform to make that meaningful for the work that will be going forward on the comp plan. But that's just planting a seed in folks' minds. Any comments or feedback on today's meeting? And again, you can use the chat. You can also, let me drop my email in the chat if you don't want to provide feedback in a public forum. You can also email me and let me know what we can improve for upcoming meetings. So I want to thank everyone for being here, for the work that you're doing, and look forward to seeing everybody next week. Excuse me. If you have the time and the interest, we will have a small group of us doing planning for next week's meeting immediately after this meeting ends. But if you can't join us for that, we hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks again.